the sort of new world order of music marketing, and we all are excited by new tools and new tricks and all of that. But the question really is, does it work? And today we have two examples of artists for whom it is working, and they've been gracious enough to come and share a little of their wisdom and experience with us. So on my left is Imogen Heap, to whom this process began in a natural way in the recording studio without a label, and just wanting to reach out to a larger community through blogging, and found that community and interacted with it, and now has built what by any standards is a successful career, and 1.3 million Twitter followers, I think, if I'm correct. And Damian Kulash of OK Go, early on in their career, decided that videos and the creative process beyond just making music was going to be a part of the way that they would interact with their fan community, and that's now netted many videos that have plays that are measured in the tens of millions. And he's recently made the leap from the arms of the major label, EMI, to doing it on his own, or on their own as a band, and again, with a great degree of success. So, to get going, we've heard the old stories. What I want to hear now, or what I hope you'll share with us now, are some more recent stories or some things that you have planned along these lines in terms of interacting with your fans in interesting ways, and how it's working for you. Imogen, you want to go?
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Okay, well, I'll start with maybe the most recent one and what I'm about to try and attempt to do with my fan base. So the last thing I did was on November the 5th in London, and I had a show at the Royal Albert Hall, which is my favourite venue on the planet. It's a really beautiful Victorian building. And so I was in there, and I did my show in the evening, which is a 2-hour-long set. But before it, I wanted to make a dream come true, and that was to conduct an orchestra of a piece of music that I've written for an orchestra, because I used to go in there as a child and wish that I could one day do that, be up there with the white gloves and the tailcoat. So I wanted to also write a music for a film, so I got together with my partner, Thomas Ermakora, a website to ask people to send in footage of nature, send in video clips. So we had anything from bees, sorry, I'll just move that over there, bees going into flowers to get pollen, to deep sea diving, and a really amazing array, 1,000 clips, 200 contributors within 3 months. And we collated this beautiful 32-minute film, which we projected at the Royal Albert Hall, and then I wrote this piece for the orchestra.
So the clips came from your fans? They were crowdsourced?
Yeah, the clips came from the fans. And when I was writing the music, what was really amazing was I was seeing these clips come into through Vimeo and YouTube, and it wasn't just about the clips, you know, because they were, some of them, really, really stunning. It was also about the stories of the people that had made the clips, and what they must have, you know, felt, the urge to kind of go out and film nature. And I love this idea that it's not kind of environmentalism beating people around the head, telling them what not to do, but it's kind of celebrating nature in a really kind of natural way. So that was my last thing, and that was great fun. And we reached 482,000 people on the web, which is quite fun, quite scary as well. So the next thing I'm really excited to do is going to be on the 14th of March. In my life, there's lots of touring, lots of kind of trying to develop new ways of having fun on stage with tech and online, and you know, and also having a life on top of that with my nice man. So in between all that, I never seem to find time to write music. So I've forced myself to have a 2-week gap every 3 months, where I'm now going to write a piece of music within that gap online with the help of my fans, hopefully. Haven't actually asked them yet, but today's the beginning of that. So on the Monday, we're gonna get clips in from the internet, from them, you know, anything from a cat purring to a city scene of traffic, maybe in London, to a dulcimer, to a piano. Sending in these clips, and then I'm going to make a piece of music out of that. The next day, they're going to send in words, and we're going to talk about the words online using vocal.com. And I'm going to try and encapsulate a moment in time, a day in time, from the fans, my fans around the world. Next day, videos, and next day, stills and pictures to get together the artwork and the music video. Friday and Saturday, get them to, I'm going to put up the middle 8 section, which I'll have recorded in the studio. They're going to then perform a solo over the top, and then the winning, my favourite one, gets on the record. Next week we film the video, and then on one day we finally release the song. My friend Tim Exile is going to do a live remix as he hears it for the first time, and we're going to have a big party at my house, maybe.
And you're going to do that
involved.
repeatedly over every 2 months as well?
Yeah, we're going to do it every 3
3
months. My plan is to do 4 songs in a year, because I'm just not getting the music done. There's just so much to do. And also, I love to work in those creative boundaries. Those limitations, really, I flourish in them. And also time limit, too, is really, I seem to thrive in that. So I'm going to put myself to the test, and I'm sure it's going to be fun.
Thank you. And Damian, you told me yesterday some interesting things that you're doing, if you'd share.
Yeah, well, hello, everyone. Like Imogen, the hardest thing to do for us is find time to write. So this coming year, we have blocked out a whole bunch of times for actually just writing music, which is the first and most exciting thing for us. Sorry, did you hear that? It sounds like my voice just came on. I was saying, like Imogen, the most difficult thing for us to do at this point is find time to just write without any sort of, without rushing through it to get to some goal, and just to actually write with the idea of making something. So this year there's a lot of writing time blocked out, which is nice. There's a few big projects on the horizon. One, there's a film, a Morgan Spurlock film. Morgan Spurlock is the guy who made Super Size Me and a bunch of other wonderfully incendiary documentaries. And today, actually, at Sundance, he is premiering his new film, Palm Wonderful Presents The Greatest Film Ever Sold. It's a film about advertising, marketing, product placement in entertainment, and he funded it by advertising, product placement, and marketing. So it's just the whole film is him taking a camera into pitch meetings and saying, "I want to make a film," and then saying, "What is this film?" And he's saying, "It's it right here. This is it right now." And it's a hilarious movie, incredibly revealing, and it basically, it's sort of the expose of how the entertainment industry works right now, which is wonderful. So we wrote the ending anthem for that song. For that film, and the film premieres today. In April, we will release a video for that song, and we're crowdsourcing that to a certain degree. We're going to make the entire thing in HTML5 with developers from Mozilla. So they're kind of putting out the call to the larger community of HTML5 developers. So it's unclear at this point what exactly it'll be, which is exciting for us. It's a new big video project and we don't know what it will be. Another video project that we don't know what it will be is a dance collaboration with the Pilobolus Dance Company in New York. So we will do live performances with them in July, and we have about 4 weeks of playtime with them between now and then to figure out what it is we're doing. Presumably a video component will be part of that, and of course the live performances. And we have other video projects on the horizon for summer and next fall if we can get around to them. The good thing about where we are right now is that we don't. Rather than having these sort of chunks of things we have to fill in, you have to get an album ready by such and such a date, or your publisher wants this, or your label wants that. We have a sort of running list of 50 or 100 ideas that would be awesome if we could get the time or the finances or the resources, the talents to do it. And so as those things come around, we chase them.
So it sounds like for both of you, you've not just made the shift in the way you're marketing, we'll just call it that, and your interaction with fans is to the new reality, if you will, but also the way in which you create music or are motivated to create music, and the timetable in which you create music has been shaped by that as well. And can you expound on that? Am I just making this up, or is that's an interesting that I
mean, the most interesting thing it's right in that first part of your question is well, let's just call it marketing. It's the whole idea that digital spaces and online spaces and the sort of new annexed reality that we have due to our digital lives is some other space, and that we have to figure out some way to discuss the artwork we make there separately from artwork we would make elsewhere. I mean, that's the sort of interesting part to me, that
that it's all a whole.
Yeah, I mean, obviously most people in this room presumably are here because they work in the marketing of music, but we're here because we work making stuff. So it doesn't feel like marketing from my shoes. I mean, I suppose that the Medicis probably thought that the Sistine Chapel was great marketing, but that's certainly not what he thought when he was painting the ceiling.
Right.
And for us, or I mean, I can't speak for Imogen, but it doesn't feel like digital spaces or social networks or the kind of new parameters of the music world are spaces that must be explored for the sake of commerce. It's spaces we get to explore for the sake of art. And in fact, they break down all of the categories and rules that existed 5 or 10 years ago in a way that's wonderfully freeing, at least for me, because I don't have to worry about making things that fit a certain mold, right, or answer to a certain sales metric.
Somebody else's timetable, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. Is that true for you as well?
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, people have said, wow, it's amazing what you're doing with marketing your songs and your records, and look at the way your career's gone. But to me, it just feels like a very long, steady build ever since I started when I was 17, signed my first record deal. And over the years, just kind of the more blockades of kind of people between me and the fans that I managed to kind of bang down, the closer I got, the more creative I got, the more fun I had. And there's definitely a period of time when I was signed to Island Records with a band called Frou Frou, where I felt very insular, and I started to not have fun. And when I left Ireland and set up my own label with my manager, Megaphonic, and ever since then, it's just felt like pushing on open doors creatively, and met so many great people. And I guess I realized also that I don't have to go through the label, because I've been kind of conditioned from
Right.
17 to 24 that that's the way that I had to do things. And when I realized that, I can just directly speak to somebody, I can directly, now go through blogs or Twitter, and the word gets around, and that person hears about it, and I end up, making some stuff with somebody I've always wanted to make stuff with.
So one of the things we talk about a lot is recently is the building of a team to help you do this, et cetera. But it sounds to me as if you guys are intimately involved in not just the imagination of these ideas, but the actual doing of them.
Sure,
Yeah.
definitely, but you also need a very good team.
Right.
Several members of my team are here right now. Boy, where to go with this? The obvious issue with the sort of death of the record labels is artists are making money somewhere, and it's not necessarily off the master recordings, or at least not off of physical sales or downloads of the master recordings. So shouldn't they be compensated for all of the other things that artists are making money off of? And that makes tons of sense. And the only reason you wouldn't want to do it from an artist's point of view is you don't get to pick that team. So if you, when we were on a major label, we had really great relationships with the sort of, bottom level workaday people who were actually doing most of the work, and actually pretty decent relationships with their bosses, but none of us picked each other. It's a big corporation, and now I have a team of sort of 5 people I work very closely with, and another 10 or 15 that they.
And you
work
got
with.
to pick them, basically.
And and they answer to our goals, not to, not to a set of goals provided by somebody
else. A corporate goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for you?
I was actually going to say that my team also does include my fans. I really hate doing biographies; they're so boring, and it's really hard to kind of, you want to tell people how, all the great things that's been happening, but you don't want to kind of blow your own trumpet too much. And I couldn't find somebody to do it, a journalist to do it. So I reached out to the fans and just said, could you? We basically did a Twitter biography. So I asked the fans to write little pieces about me in 140 characters or less, and we compiled it together and created a biography that was by the fans. And it was amazing how well they knew me, which is maybe a sign of how much I tweet. But it was a really fun kind of creative biography, and I think it kind of said a lot about what we do together, me and the fans, without kind of having to spell it out.
Beyond the obvious, the Facebook, the Twitter, the making videos, is there any particular technology that you're either using or have read about or thinking about using that is just sort of interesting to you or has potential or maybe even have shown results, Ustream or whatever it might be?
Well, for me, I'm really passionate about this great program called Vocal.
And it's spelled differently. Help me.
Vocal spelled Vokle.
Okay.
And when I met them, they sent me an email because they'd heard how I like using lots of different, different kinds of ways to reach my fans. And so they sent me an email saying, we've got this new software, we think you're going to love it. So I met them in LA. They hadn't yet done a broadcast. I didn't know that. I thought they had. So they were in a cafe, and we plugged in online to the wireless network. And I started, it's basically like a YouTube, but a live TV broadcasting. It has broadcasting capability, so you can kind of go, you can choose an editor, you can choose a producer, you can choose somebody who's going to kind of screen people before they come online, and you can pick people, and you can have up to 100 people on one screen, all in little boxes. So it's really, really great fun. So I did that, and just in the first time of using it, 300 fans came up, and we were already chatting and having conversations, and I just instantly just was like, this is what I want to do. So almost the next day or next few days, I started auditioning cellists for my shows that way. So that I was doing a tour around the States, and I asked anyone who fancied playing this song with me. My percussionist scored out the cello part, and so they got the PDF, they learnt it, and there was people. So I was in my hotel room, and they were often in their school or in their garden or somewhere creative or in their bedroom, and they would have their cellos, and they would kind of be playing this piece while playing it down the the TV on the internet. And all my fans were like, she's great, we love her, get her, definitely. And it was really, really fun to see the reactions. And I found some amazing cellists, and people kept in touch with. And later did some a cappella auditions too. And I did some jamming with some fans while they were in their homes and I was in my hotel room playing the piano, they were playing the piano. It was good fun.
Nice. That must have been horrifying.
Oh,
I can't imagine having to try out for you via Skype, essentially.
Oh, and very nice. I had a pet lion. It was all fine.
Yeah. I don't have such an interesting answer. I'm not. There are no individual things where I'm like, well, that's the future of excitement.
Oh, just more something you found interesting or that's worked. Or.
There's. I guess it seems like new technologies are tumbling past us so quickly now that it's that. The difficulty not the difficulty, but the trick for me in finding a good creative idea is to figure out creative boundaries that are simple and concise and that I can push up against and discover new things within. We're in fact, in dealing with this HTML5 project we're doing right now, one of the problems is that everything is possible. That there's no that coming up with what makes it a concise idea that actually makes it good art or that makes it interesting, to engage with, is the difficult part.
So is there I hear a certain tension between the song comes first or the concept comes first. Which comes first, or is it different every time?
For me, the idea comes first, and I tend to that tends to start with the song. I mean, the most private thing I do is songwriting. I work with the other members of my band eventually, but most of it is me sitting with a guitar or a piano, and it's like a really solitary act. And then the project sort of grows and involves more people in whatever direction that is. But I know this is sort of naive, but I really don't. I like not seeing a distinction between music, as in beats and chords and lyrics, and music as in all these things that we get to do as people who live in the 21st century. I don't think that music has that pop music has really ever been non-visual. I mean, there's no Elvis without his hips, and there's no Jimi Hendrix without his lighter fluid, and I don't. I don't like, you know, while that doesn't mean their music wasn't the most amazing thing about them, or their sort of recordings weren't the most amazing thing about them, the recording industry itself is only 100 years old, and I feel like I grew up listening to the radio and listening to pop songs on, you know, 7-inch records, and so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make recordings like that, but that's not. It was because what's exciting is making stuff, and so given that we live in an era with totally different cultural parameters, making stuff doesn't necessarily need to have anything to do with 3.5-minute audio recording. It's just that's where I start because that's sort of my traditional base. So the video projects for us always come after the songwriting projects, but they're all kind of interwoven. And right now we're trying to figure out whether or not we even want to work in album cycles anymore. It doesn't make sense with the sort of commercial world any longer, but I also don't like having to think of every song as being like, okay, and now here's another project, and now here's another project. I mean, I like writing 100 songs so that 20 of them can be good enough to start in the studio, so that 12 of them can come out well, you know?
So we're going to open this up to questions in just a minute, but before we do, is there any, from each of you, is there any thing that you think we've missed or piece of advice that you might share with somebody, an artist or a team a little earlier in the cycle than you guys are, a place to start?
No, I haven't really formulated my answer.
I think there's the really simple way to say it is just make good shit, you know, which is obvious, but where it's not so obvious is that that the metrics other people have for success are probably less intelligent than your own. You know, that making you know, we're all making subjective artwork, and so you know, judging what success is already sort of a losing battle. But the music industry has been so firm and so stable for so long that people, you know, the Billboard charts are a great place to, like, that's what success is selling lots of records. But now that that's totally imploded, you actually get to have this freedom of being, you know, so don't you know, be on the big champagne charts, or be on the Billboard charts, or be on the YouTube charts, or don't be on any charts, just make something awesome. And in fact, I think especially young artists probably know a lot more about the culture they live in and what is meaningful impact on that culture than marketers do, or certainly than record labels do.
Sure. I would go back to what I said before, is that in the beginning it starts as a hobby, and try your best to make it still feel like a hobby. Have fun with it, and go where your kind of creative energies want to go. Try not to second guess everything too much, and don't try to overthink things, because often your intuition is right, and if you live it and breathe it, and like all of us, we live in this world right now, and if you're online already and you're a fan of music, and then you're kind of bound to intuitively know where to go. So just go where your heart tells you. That's my advice.
Thank you. So do we have any questions? We've got just a few minutes. There are people, I believe, with microphones in the audience. And
there's a gentleman.
Sorry, thank you. Somebody right here.
Hi, thank you. Is it on? Yes. I was going to ask about negativity and some of the artists you've seen on Twitter who've kind of retreated because they encountered haters on there. How have you found that in terms of being close to people who don't like you so much or are trolling?
I've never had any issues with it, actually. I've got a lovely fan base, and I don't seem to want to annoy people enough to want to bother about writing something nasty to me. So I've been very lucky, touch wood, and I don't want to encourage it, so let's not talk about it anymore.
I think, you know, all of these things are sort of a one-to-many communication, no matter what. So it's no different than, you know, reading a review of somebody who doesn't like your record. You know, it's kind of like, you can choose to focus on the things people don't like or on the things that people do like. And in general, while it's easy to find, you know, I'm very self-critical, and it's easy to be like, wow, they're right, that was shitty. It's easier to be really touched when someone says that yours is the song that got them through their father's death.
But having said that, it does always seem to be, there could be 100 amazing comments and there's one bad one, and it really sticks with you. That's the only one you seem to remember. So it's quite unfortunate the way the mind works.
But you push onward.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi, yeah, I was interested in the point you were making about crowdsourcing and getting your fans involved with things. But I'd read an interview with Neil Tennant from the Pet Shop Boys in the last couple of weeks, and he basically proposed the argument that fans shouldn't actually get involved with kind of artists' creative side of things. I was just wondering what your take on that is. Is it a kind of generational shift where new artists realise what fans can do, and somebody like Neil Tennant's working in an old model?
Yeah, completely.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that entirely. Did you?
Oh, he was saying that the Pet Shop Boys, Neil Tennant said that it wasn't, he didn't think that fans should get involved in the creative process. Well, I violently disagree. No, I think, well, for me anyway, it just, it brings me to life. I feel connected, and I feel inspired by the kind of randomness of it all. It's just me in my studio. There's no producer, engineer, mixer. It's just me. So I really kind of dine on that, having that interaction, and it often spins me in directions where I wouldn't normally go. And I do a lot of projects that are totally the other direction from where I would have gone, purely because of where the fans take me often. So.
I think it's totally. It depends on what you're making, and whether what you're making is any good, and if you can manage to generate some. I mean, the difficult thing about crowdsourced projects of any kind is that you are no longer. You can't necessarily set the bar for quality. I mean, unless you figure out a way to do so. But it feels to me like saying you shouldn't use red in a painting. That's true if you're Picasso during the Blue Period, but not other times. It's like it's one way to make things, and if you make great stuff.
So in other words, there's no one way, is the...
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one real danger I see in crowdsourced stuff is that it's so novel right now, and that the idea itself, it's like, well, this is a great idea, so therefore it's a great project. The fact that it's a great idea doesn't mean it generated a great song. On the other hand, having total sort of tyrannical control over what you make doesn't necessarily make it any better either. For us, there's a balance between being inspired by our fans, being very, hyper connected to our fans, but also maintaining enough control over what we do that it still feels representative of us, and that we can make things we think are better than what else is floating out across the internet.
It's also for me. Just one more thing is that I think. There's many professionals right in the world who are doing amazing things, and you can go to them to do your artwork, or go to them to get your video done. Unless you're Damien, you do it yourself. There's so many people out there who are also trying to get up on the ladder and trying to have something to put in their CV, and it could be they just. I did for my album artwork. I again had the fun of kind of bringing the fans physically onto the album by. Them taking photographs of what the lyrics inspired them to feel. So they took these photographs. We've got about, I don't know, a few thousand, 2,000, I can't remember, photographs. And we went through them and we found our favourite ones, and we projected them onto me in my house. And they got their name in the CD. I got a great kind of feeling of togetherness, because they'd been with me throughout the making of the record. I blogged it nearly every day, and about the recording process, because I also wanted my family and friends to understand what it is I do all day. So I really love that a few people have met me after gigs and said, "Oh, thank you so much. This got me this," or "I managed to show this to this person I wanted to work for, and I got this," and that's what it's all about. Spread the love.
Well, we've run out of time, but thank you both very much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And I did my show in the evening, which is a 2-hour-long set. But before it, I wanted to make a dream come true. And that was to conduct an orchestra of a piece of music that I've written for an orchestra, because I used to go in there as a child and wish that I could one day do that, be up there with the white gloves and the tailcoat. So I wanted to also write a music for a film. So I got together with my partner, Thomas Ermakora, a website to ask people to send in footage of nature.
Have planned along these lines in terms of interacting with your fans in interesting ways, and how it's working for you. Imogen, you want to go?
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Okay, well, I'll start with maybe the most recent one and what I'm about to try and attempt to do with my fan base. So the last thing I did was on November the 5th in London, and I had a show at the Royal Albert Hall, which is my favourite venue on the planet. It's a really beautiful Victorian building. And so I was in there.
The creative process beyond just making music was going to be a part of the way that they would interact with their fan community, and that's now netted many videos that have plays that are measured in the tens of millions. And he's recently made the leap from the arms of the major label, EMI, to doing it on his own, or on their own as a band, and again, with a great degree of success. So, to get going, we've heard the old stories. What I want to hear now, or what I hope you'll share with us now, are some more recent stories, or some things that you Heap, to whom this process began in a natural way in the recording studio without a label, and just wanting to reach out to a larger community through blogging, and found that community and interacted with it, and now has built what by any standards is a successful career, and 1.3 million Twitter followers, I think, if I'm correct. And Damian Kulash of OK Go, early on in their career, decided that videos and the sort of new world order of music marketing, and we all are excited by new tools and new tricks and all of that. But the question really is, does it work? And today we have two examples of artists for whom it is working, and they've been gracious enough to come and share a little of their wisdom and experience with us. So on my left is Imogen Heap.